Hi friends, it's Kirsten. Hi friends, welcome back. So today's Bible study, we're going over the death of Lazarus, which is a super important and super exciting miracle that Jesus performs. It is probably like one of the biggest miracles that Jesus ever performed because it was raising someone from the dead. Spoiler alert. But we are in John chapter 11, verses 1 through 16. So let's get into it right now. So y'all remember I said that John went into serious detail, like more than any of the other gospels did. So the first couple of verses is just him giving backstory and giving a little bit of inside information. So I'm going to share that on the screen. I'm just going to read this through and then we'll talk about it in just a second. Verse 1. Now a certain man was sick named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. Verse 2. It was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Verse 3. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. Verse 4. When Jesus heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Verse 5. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So I love that background is given because you find out who Lazarus is. You're given a little bit of info on Mary and Martha, who exactly they are, where they are in the town of Bethany, and what's going on. So the sisters, Mary and Martha, both went to Jesus and said, Behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. So backstory on that is Jesus and Lazarus were friends. He was friends with him and his sisters. He loved them. And I love that verse 5 says, Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So y'all know that I use Enduring Word as my resource to help dive deeper and really get an understanding in what we're going over. So it kind of brought up the point that verse 5 lets you know that Jesus had an individual, genuine love for each person. It wasn't just saying he loved them, they were like family, grouped them together. No, he loved Martha, he loved Mary, and he loved Lazarus, like individually and with a genuine love for each person. Verse 4 is really cool though, because how he responds to them is saying like, yes, your brother is sick. I heard y'all. However, this is not going to end in death, because Jesus already knew, they didn't, obviously, what he was going to do next. But he said this is going to be for the glory of God, and the Son of God might be glorified. So again, Enduring Word kind of lets you know that Jesus is, I don't want to use the word prophesying, but kind of speaking before his crucifixion and arrest and everything. He's saying the glory of God will be shown because his life will come back and the Son of God might be glorified. So whenever the Bible speaks of Jesus being glorified, it's speaking of his crucifixion, because that is showing the glory of the Son of God and what he's doing. So when it says that the Son of God might be glorified, Enduring Word lets us know that he said this because this event, this miracle, is what prepared and set the stage for his crucifixion and his arrest to take place. Like, this had to happen to prepare the way because it was almost time. I think that is super cool and a very important detail. So verse 6 is actually super interesting, and throughout the rest of the passage down to verse 16, I was texting with my friend who leads our G group at church on Tuesday nights, and I was asking him kind of his thoughts and his opinions and what he thought about this, because it honestly confused me. And I was looking at Enduring Word, and what they said on there kind of confused me more. So I kind of reached out to ask for help. And I love that I have those friends that I can go to and they can give me maybe more resources or more insight on what it is I'm reading and their opinion, so I'm able to actually understand it more. Okay, so verse 6 says, When he had heard therefore that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Because remember, before this, Jesus escaped from Jerusalem. Remember the last thing we talked about, and where people believed on him. He was in Perea. You guys know I'm not good with pronunciations of these names, but that's where he was. So he stayed there for 2 additional days, even after he heard that Lazarus was sick. There is a point to this, so keep this in mind. We'll go over that in just a second. So verse 7, Then after that saith he to his disciples, let us go into Judea again. So this is massive because he's telling his disciples, okay, we have to go to Judea. This is where Lazarus was. This is where Bethany was. The problem is Judea is where those religious leaders were that tried to stone him 2 times and wanted him arrested and literally wanted to kill him. So then in verse 8, his disciples say unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? So they're warning him. They're like, do you not remember, like, Judea is where the leaders are that tried to stone you, that want you dead, like it's dangerous. Like, are you sure you want to go there again? Jesus answered in verse 9, he said, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. Verse 11, These things said he, and after that he saith unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of his sleep. So in verse 9 and 10, when Jesus is talking about the 12 hours in the day, walking in the day, not stumbling, walking in the night and stumbling, enduring word kind of lets us know, if you guys are following along, that he's speaking about how his time is coming up soon. So throughout the whole book of John, you see that every time someone tries to harm him, arrest him, whatever, he always says, it's not my time, so it doesn't happen. And so he knows his time is coming soon, so he's like, I have work to do. There are still things that need to be done. I cannot be concerned with these religious leaders because I already know what's going to happen. It's almost my time. I have to do this before. So then in verse 11, when Jesus says, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of his sleep. He already knows that Lazarus is dead. He was warned by Mary and Martha that he was sick, basically on his deathbed. And so Jesus lets the disciples know, like using an analogy. I told y'all Jesus loved using analogies, that he was sleeping. But then after that, he says, But I go that I may awake him out of his sleep. So in verse 12 and 13, it shows kind of how the disciples took Jesus for his word, almost the same way the religious leaders did in a very literal sense sometimes. So verse 12, Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Verse 13, Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking a rest and sleep. So when Jesus said that he was sleeping and he's going to wake him up, the disciples were like, if he's just sleeping, like he's fine. You don't need to go into this dangerous territory and risk your life to wake someone up if they're just sleeping. But Jesus was literally talking about he was dead and he was going to raise him again. The disciples it wasn't clicking for them not to take Jesus at a literal sense here. So verse 14, Then said Jesus unto them plainly, because he realized, oh, they're taking me for my word and thinking that this man is asleep and I'm just going to go wake him up. Lazarus is dead. Verse 15, And I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. So verse 15 is kind of where I was lost and why I had to text my friend and be like, what do you think about this? Like, can you help me, give me some insight? Because, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. Nevertheless, let us go. So Jesus intentionally waited those extra days and then said, okay, let's go. I have to do, like, I have work to do. I have to go and wake him up. Like, let's all go here. It's going to be okay. Because if he had just gone there immediately, they wouldn't have believed that he was really dead. Because get this, this is really, really cool to me. So when Jesus and the disciples ended up in Judea, Lazarus had been dead and buried for 4 days. And so what I learned is that in Jewish culture during that time, I'm not sure if they still believe this, but during that time, they believed that for 3 days after a person dies, their spirit or their soul kind of hovers over the body, over the tomb, and they're waiting to see if they're going to be like resuscitated and brought back into their body. And once it hits the 4th day, everyone loses hope because the spirit is like released. It's gone from around the body. It cannot be brought back. So Jesus knew that these people believed that. So if he had gone before the 3rd day and brought him back, they would have kind of looked at it as like okay, well, his soul was here. Like, good, thank you. Like, this is still a miracle, but like, thank you. If he waited the full 4 days, which he did, then when he got there to raise him, then people would be like, but his spirit was released and you brought him back. Like, it would be an even bigger thing. And so people would believe truly, and more people would believe in him. So then verse 16 says, then said Thomas, which is called Didymus. I'll put that on the screen because I don't know if I'm saying that right. Unto his fellow disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. This verse right here should be highlighted. Go ahead and mark it, put a star by it, highlight it for me, please, because this is like an ultimate statement of faith. So Thomas knew that Jesus was wanted in Judea. He knew that these religious leaders wanted to kill him, and he didn't understand what Jesus was going to do. He didn't understand the resurrection part of it, or that this was all going according to plan. He didn't know, but he had kind of like a, what do we call it? Like a blind faith. Like, okay, what Jesus says, we have to go here. We follow him. Let's just have faith that he knows what he's doing, and let's just go. So what's really cool about that is that back in those days, I don't know if it's still a thing, but I know back then, most Jewish people had two names. They would have a Hebrew name and a Greek name. So their Hebrew name would be kind of what their close friends, their close circle, their family would call them and know them by. And their Greek name is something that like the outer circle would know them by. Does that make sense? So like not their close friends and family, were like outer people who weren't that close to them. That's what they would call them. So Thomas's name was Hebrew. Thomas was the Hebrew version, and Didymus was his Greek name. And Didymus actually means twin. So fun fact that I learned as well is that Thomas looked a lot like Jesus, which is why he was called twin. He looked like he could be Jesus's twin, looked just like him. So the comment of him saying, let us also go that we may die with him, he was one of the main ones who that would affect. Because if they went to Judea and these religious leaders knew what Jesus looked like, they could mistake Thomas for him, have him arrested, and kill Thomas thinking they were killing Jesus. So he had probably the highest risk at all the disciples for persecution, for being killed on behalf of Jesus, for them just taking him as Jesus instead of being Thomas. So for him to say that as like a pure statement of faith, because not only was he saying like, we follow him, we need to trust him and have faith, and we're going to go there, and if we all die with him, then oh well, we follow him till we die. But there was also a second part to that, and him being like taking that personally and saying, well, I look just like him, and if they want to go for Jesus and they see me and they mistake me for him, I could be the first to go on an accident. So that ends this Bible study, verses 1 through 16. Tomorrow we will pick up verses 17 through 31. This whole chapter is all about Lazarus. So we're just going to get bits and pieces each day. So this is kind of setting the stage. It is letting us know who Lazarus is, where he is, what the situation is. And now Jesus is saying, let's go to Judea. I know I'm a wanted man there, but we are preparing the way. My crucifixion is coming, which, by the way, the disciples do not know this yet. They do not know that Jesus is going to die. They don't know that he's going to be resurrected. They literally are clueless about this. But Jesus knows it is all according to plan. So this sets us up for tomorrow's Bible study, and I really hope you guys are getting something from this. You guys are getting a little bit more understanding, a little bit more clarity, because I'm really enjoying sharing these, especially since we are on YouTube and not Instagram, so I can share a little bit lengthier and go into more detail. But if you guys are loving these, please go ahead and subscribe, like this video, comment below something, maybe if you had an aha moment, or if a verse stuck out to you, or if you're just really understanding, or if you're just happy to be here with me, because I'm happy to be here with y'all. So with that being said, I love you guys, I appreciate you guys, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.